I paid $3,600 for a dusty storage unit that looked empty. The photos showed a broomed floor, a couple of sad cardboard boxes, and a dark back wall that swallowed the light. But there was something about that wall, too clean, too new, like a fresh bandage on an old wound. I couldn't shake it, so I bid hard. The auction started slow. A few regulars tossed in courtesy numbers. Then the price jumped in jagged steps. 1,500, 19, 26, 3,000 even. My palms were slick. The more I stared at that back wall, the more it stared back at me. The plywood looked newer than everything else, not patched with random screws but carefully pinned. The paint didn't match the rest. Someone, at some point, didn't want anybody looking past it. That's all I needed to see. 3-6. I called. Silence. The auctioneer eyed the crowd. His chant hung in the heat, and then the gavel dropped. Sold. Cut to pickup day. Golden hour. Red roll-up doors glowing like they'd been dipped in honey. My friend Lena walked beside me. Jeans, tee, hair tied back, grin that said this is either genius or chaos. We lifted the door. The unit was colder than outside, the air heavy with old dust. The first step made that papery crunch sound, like walking on the ghosts of receipts. I scanned the room. Boxes on the left, stacked but not labeled, a long cardboard tube near the entrance, and at the very back. That's suspicious. Wall. Up close, it was obvious. The plywood was a shade to beige, the fasteners to uniform, and there were light scuff marks on the floor where something had been dragged toward it. I tapped the panel. Hello. Okay, Lena said, half excited, half worried. If this is just a rat hotel, I'm not paying for dinner. We did a quick sweep for anything alive that shouldn't be. No movement. Just the smell of dry wood and machine oil. I grabbed a pry bar and a hammer. First nail popped clean. Second gave a fight. By the third, dust bloomed into the light like glitter. The panel creaked. A few more nails and the plywood bowed, breathing out a draft of colder air, like opening a freezer that hadn't been touched in years. We pulled the panel free. Behind it, a hidden bay, maybe 6 feet deep. The beam of my flashlight passed over wooden crates with metal straps, long blueprint tubes, milk crates filled with greasy rags and labeled baggies, and, my heart kicked, the smooth curve of a car's fender, buried under a heavy beige tarp. I didn't breathe. Neither did Lena. Is that a car? She whispered, as if we might wake it. The silhouette said late 80s to early 90s, boxy, squared off, wide arches. The tarp clung to sharp lines at the nose, and a compact cabin further back. Up front, I saw the ghosted outline of 4 circular headlight housings in a row, the kind of quad light setup you only see on track specials or early prototypes. Piping peeked from beneath the front lip, intercooler routing. And just behind the bumper edge, a dense finned rectangle, a front mount cooler that didn't belong on a commuter. We didn't touch the tarp yet. We cataloged. The first crate had stencils, components, twin turbo, fragile. My brain started doing math. If those were genuine period parts, the crate alone might be worth a decent chunk. The blueprint tubes were capped in aluminum, not cardboard. One had a wax seal half torn. On top of it all sat a thick binder with a cracked spine, edges rippled from humidity. The label on the binder, validation, our program, chassis pound, and the rest had been scratched out with a pen. I know what you're thinking. Our program? The car world is full of mythic letters. R, RS, GTR, Type R. Single characters that whisper about prototypes and secret projects. But the binder had no manufacturer branding, just a generic supplier stamp and an internal control number. This could be a clever prank. It could also be the start of something unreal. We pulled the tarp gently, like unveiling a painting. Dust lifted in sheets. The nose emerged first, boxy bumper, a blank black strip, where a badge would normally live, for circular headlight housings like a row of watch faces, and a gaping opening that fed directly into an intercooler. No chrome, no vanity, pure function. The fenders were wider than stock, hand-shaped, judging by the subtle asymmetry of the inner lip. Under the hood cut line, a set of quick-release pins sat where hood latches would be. Track stuff. Test stuff. Please be real, I whispered. We traced the body. The doors had no window frames, just the glass. The mirrors were stubby and painted matte black, like parts bin pieces. The windshield had a fine overspray mist at the edges, as if the car had been painted around taped glass in a hurry. Through the glass, a roll bar shimmered, bolt-in, not welded, and not the polished showpiece kind. The interior looked stripped and purposeful, 2 bucket seats with harness slots, a dash with extra toggle switches drilled in a straight, no-nonsense line, and a cluster that wasn't quite production, some signage tape with handwritten notes, where warning lights should be. We popped the hood. Underneath was a nest of hardlines, braided hoses, and a pair of turbo inlets that disappeared low and deep. The intake manifold was bare and sand cast. with casting marks that hadn't been sanded smooth. On the firewall, a plate had once lived. You could see the rectangle of cleaner paint. It was gone now, removed, maybe harvested. In its place, the faintest stamp near the strut tower, not a conventional VIN, more like a pre-production sequence. Letters, numbers, and a hyphen that didn't conform to any roadway legal format I knew. I took a photo, then another, with scale. Either this is a very committed replica, Lena said, or we just opened a time capsule. We went through the crates. The twin turbo components box wasn't lying. Inside, 2 compressor housings wrapped in oily paper, a pair of turbine housings still tagged, and a bundle of stainless manifolds with welds that looked hand-done by someone who cared. There were spare intercooler end tanks, silicone couplers faded from age, a handful of flanges labeled Rev C, and a wastegate with a test tag, Cycle, okay? One milk crate held little bags of fasteners with label tape, front arrow, prototype duct, intake stay, and, this made my skin prickle, headlamp delete. I looked back at the 4 round housings. Delete. Was there a version without lights? Track mule. Night testing. A dozen possibilities rushed through. We cracked the binder. The first pages were boring. Routing sheets, sign-offs, duty schedules. Then a black and white photo slid out, taken in a workshop, mid-build. The same quad headlight nose. Same fenders. A younger version of this car, with a different intercooler core. Behind it, on the wall, a calendar from 1992. The bottom corner of the photo had a stamp, Test, Highway, R. Another page was a parts audit with highlighted lines for charge pipe, revised, oil scavenge pump, fitment clearance, and rear diff, IWS. IWS could be internal code, or a supplier. The jargon was thick, but it sounded like the language of real development. Then we found something small and easy to miss, a metal key fob with nothing on it, but an engraved R, and a serial number. The number matched the last 3 of the firewall stamp. Every tiny doubt I had grew branches and roots. This wasn't a random stash. This was a dumped project. Someone's test mule that never made it back. We didn't fire it up. Not yet. Firing a mystery engine that's been asleep for decades is how you turn rare into ruined. Instead, we did the sensible things. We checked the oil. It was dark but present. No glitter. Coolant. Low. A crust of dried green around the cap. Brake fluid. Amber swamp. Tires. Flat spots like corners of a box. We rolled the engine gently by hand with a breaker bar. It moved. No lock. That was a good sign. For the next hour, we documented everything. Photos of castings, stamps, welds, measurements of widths, the pattern of the headlight buckets, even the hardware's finish. Little tells a forger doesn't bother to get right. We bagged and tagged loose parts. Every bolt we touched, we returned. The goal wasn't to flip this overnight. The goal was to figure out what it was, and then decide its future. Lena found a secondary stash under the driver's seat. A small envelope with 3x6 prints, test photos shot at dawn. The car wore taped over badges and a mismatched rear bumper. In one, it's parked on a bank track with a support van next to it. In another, a man in a windbreaker holds a clipboard with R, cooling, scribbled on the top. The last shot shows the quad lights blazing through fog, which made the headlamp delete bag even stranger. Multiple configurations. Phases. Mules evolve. That's how development works. We took a break on the unit's threshold, legs dangling, golden dust swirling in the beams of light. I did what you would do. I started thinking numbers. If this is a genuine pre-production mule tied to an R program from a major Japanese brand, what's it worth? The realistic answer, it depends. It depends on documentation. It depends on how much of it is original. It depends on whether a manufacturer acknowledges it existed, or insists it should have been scrapped. It depends on whether the fan base believes the story. But the parts, the binder, the photos, the stamp, they all point in the same direction. So here's our plan, transparent, step by step. Step 1. Authenticate the hard evidence. We're going to photograph every page of the binder and every stamp, then compare fonts, ink, and document structure to known examples from that era. We have contacts who collect internal paperwork. We'll see if the supplier control numbers line up with real vendors. Step 2. Metallurgical and casting tells. Sand cast manifolds and housings leave unique textures. We'll compare them to documented P.